Hey everybody, Tim Harrison, Straight Up Mortgage Talk, and today we're going to talk about title insurance with Tim and Debra Galli, best title reps in the business. I have worked with them for over 30 years, and they're going to tell us what is title insurance, why do we have it, why do we need it, and why is it so absolutely critical. So let's get started. Hey, Tim and Debra, when I was thinking about doing a straight up mortgage deal on title, there's no other team that I thought about than the Tim and Debra Galli team at First American Title. Been working with you guys for almost 30 years. You take care of business. You are my experts on title insurance. And so I just knew that you were the ones that I had to interview. So thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate you.
Awesome. So here's the deal. So this is going to be for a lot of first-time home buyers, maybe new realtors and that kind of thing. I was like, what is title insurance? So they see it on their deal. They know they're paying for it, but there's two sides of it. Can you guys just kind of in simple terms, try to make title insurance sound exciting and worth paying for?
Well, right? Yeah, insurance is insurance, but let's talk about let's talk about this, because a lot of the consumers and a lot of people, their perception of insurance is your insurance against something in the future. Let's say a car accident, your health, something like that. Well, title insurance is nothing like that. Title insurance is an insurance against the past. Okay, so when you buy a piece of property, okay, and as soon as you close that piece of property, First American Title, what we're going to do is we're going to ensure from that moment back that nothing's going to come back and disrupt your ownership. Okay. So it's an insurance against the past, nothing against the future. What I got to tell you though, once we close the deal, anything that happens after that, that's the owner's responsibility. We're responsible.
Right. So types of things you protect against, like going to like, what's a mechanic lien? What's a lien on title, like a mortgage or that kind of stuff. Like you're saying you're protecting against that stuff. What is that stuff?
I think first of all, it's important to point out that there's actually two different title policies.
Okay.
When somebody purchases a new home, there's a title insurance policy that protects the owner, the new buyer of the property, against their past. Sellers basically saying, we're cleaning up our past. We're giving you the property free and clear of any liens, any judgments, any loans. Nobody's going to come and knock on your door and say, hey, we own this property. Somebody gave us a grant deed last month and we own this property. So we're protecting the seller against those types of items, or excuse me, the buyer against those types of items. But if you have a new loan on the property, the lender comes in and says, well, wait a minute. We're really glad the seller's purchasing a policy to protect you, Mr. Buyer, but we're loaning you $600,000 on this home. And we as a lender want to be protected as well. And that's why there's two different policies. The buyer then purchases a concurrent policy, and that concurrent policy protects the lender against those same types of things. It protects their position. They're in first position with their loan. Nobody's going to come back and say that there's money owed in front of them. Nobody's going to come back and say that there's ownership in the property that there shouldn't be.
For example, an IRS lien gets slapped on there and all of a sudden they're trying to say they're in front of the mortgage company. So we don't care about those people who pay cash, because I don't like them, because I want them to get loans, because that keeps my team and I employed. So those people that pay cash, forget those people. But so you two types of insurance. One, basically the owner's telling the new buyer, here's the title insurance that says anything that's on me or in the past or whatever is insured. Not your problem. It's Tim and Debra and First American Title's problem. And then the other is the lender wants a sort of an additional coverage to just make sure nothing can pop in front of us, because otherwise in that example, we have 600,000 problems that we don't want to deal with. And so you guys are basically coming in and saying, you can have a clean transaction to move forward, both owner and buyer and lender, actually, if you think about it. And you don't have to worry about something coming up later that could threaten your ownership or equity in that property, or for the seller, something that would basically become a problem where they kind of try to prove that they don't have these things that are potentially, how does they guarantee that to the buyer? They don't without title insurance guaranteeing it for them, which is why the bulk of the payment on a purchase, for example, is paid for by the seller, right? The seller side. And then the lender's policy is much cheaper, because you're just asking us, we're just making sure that we don't have any surprises that could pop in between that closing, right? So one of the things that is interesting is that you guys don't really have a ton of claims that come available or become a problem. And I'm going to ask you later for like an interesting story. I mean, it's a percentage of transactions you don't, but what you have is huge cost of keeping data accurate to avoid those problems, people, cost. So get into that a little bit. Like, how do you guys keep so much data? I mean, somebody could have a mechanics lien. By the way, you get some work done to your property, you don't pay that person, they can file a mechanics lien against your property, which is another type of lien besides loans and, you know, whatever, gambling debts or whatnot, where if you sign something, it's in writing, somebody could have a lien against your property. You guys have to like research all this to protect yourselves, because otherwise your title insurance could be astronomical cost.
Yeah.
But what you guys mostly do as title insurance companies, as I understand it from a layman's term, is you pay for a crap load of data and access to make sure you have done the research on that property and then it's as clean as it possibly can be as far as liens.
Well, you said we don't have that many claims. Two things. When we have a
all right, well, that's why you're on here.
It is huge. Okay, they're not loose. They're not $100, $500, $1,000 claims. They're usually very big, and then we have to have attorneys to get involved. So that's expensive. But if we do our job right, when I say we, I mean our inside staff. We have a whole search and examining department that will go back and look at the whole history of this property and search everything: owners' names, what the owner has against them, what the property has against it, what the taxes are they current, have they been paid? You know, are there, what years are delinquent? Are there supplemental taxes that could pop? All these things we have to research before we issue what we call a preliminary title report. And then once we issue that, we hand that to you, the lender, the escrow company, the consumers involved in the transaction. We'll hand it to them and then they sign off on it. But that thing is only dated to that point. So, you know, a 30-day escrow, now there's some stuff that could happen in there. So we'll do what we call a date down and we will research that again. So all these things we do to make sure that we don't have claims. But I'm glad you're going to ask about some claims. We've got some really fun
So
stories.
for the realtors out there that want to have, and the people and buyers and sellers, all of a sudden, I'm glad I was going to ask you about date down. And that's basically super interesting because people think the transaction is ready to close, and all of a sudden you guys do a date down and an IRS lien comes up, or something else pops up that you didn't find in your research before. And somebody goes, oh, you know, title company didn't do their job, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not that. It's just that something can actually pop up during that 30 days. And that, you know, whether it's a payoff, a potential lien, a mechanic lien, whatever, that's why the date down is, because you're insuring it as of that close date. And so that's why it's super important that, yeah, things can still come up because things are going on for that 30 days or for the term of the transaction. So
one of the really important things to understand too, Tim, is that there's actually two different searches that are done on each property. There's a search that's done on the chain of title for that property.
Right.
What initially comes out in your preliminary title report. But there also has to be a search on the person's name, which we call a general index search. And the general index search is not done initially on the preliminary title report because, for instance, if you have a name of Bob Smith or
Tim Harrison,
a very common name, there may be 2,500 liens against that name, but none of them may be yours. So that's why we ask for the statement of information. The sooner in the transaction we receive the statement of information, we can go in and clear that and make sure.
So let me tell, because people always have this question. This is one of the biggest questions people have, is like, why am I already gave you this information, you know, like where I've worked for the last 2 years and blah, blah. Now, escrow company is usually the one that sends them the statement of information. And it's not really escrow's request, it's title insurance request. And that statement of information is going to ask where you've been, where you've lived, where you've worked, where you've done all these things for the last 10 years. And people are like, oh, why do they need to know this? Well, that's exactly the point. Tim Harrison, the deadbeat who didn't pay child support and has a bunch of liens and suits and IRS stuff against him, may not be the same reputable, wonderful, amazing mortgage banker, Tim Harrison, fabulous family man and husband, right? But you don't know that because in sort of record it in the county recorder's office and stuff. They don't record by social security numbers. They don't have any of that. All they have is a name, right? So that statement of information, the sooner we get that from people, that's what they're talking about. They have to weed through this and see, is that Tim? So a lot of times it gives everybody a panic attack. Oh, there's this lien against that person. Well, it's not really that person. They just happen to have a similar name. So that's, thank you for addressing that statement of information, because everybody never really understands why they have to fill that out. And what I tell people is, yeah, it's to weed out the bad stuff, to find out it's not you. And if you have something, you know it's you.
Yeah. And Tim, remind everybody that we're not running a credit report. Because people get upset, they're like, ding my credit. No, we're not. We're not running.
Oh, I never even thought about that, actually.
Credit report. So don't get stressed out about it, because, you know, it is another form. I've just filled out all this information. And now you again. And so what are you going to do? Run my credit report? No, we're not. We're just running the general index.
Got it. Meaning we're trying to separate the Tim Harrisons or the John Smiths of the world that county might have recorded liens, judgments, suits, IRS stuff against them, and make sure that that's not you. And so what title insurance is concerned about, and so is everybody in the transaction, including the lender, is that IRS lien or that lien can't all of a sudden attach to the property. We don't care if you have a problem, but when it starts impacting us or costing the title insurance company money, that's where we give a dang, because we have to make sure that's not going to attach to the property. Remember, the title on that property for the lender is collateral. For the title insurance, it's the risk that there's something they potentially could have to pay out because it's leaned in front of us and they didn't catch it. So that's what that's about. All right. So the fun stuff, we know, I mean, I think we did a pretty good job of like, this is what it is. This is why you have to fill out. This is why you need it. You know, you got to protect your asset. I mean, that's the biggest asset almost anybody that I know has, is real estate, period. End of story. And it's the one that you have to protect, and that title insurance does that and allows us to close transactions cleanly for both buyers, sellers, realtors, us, everything, lenders, which is of course pretty close to my heart. So interesting situations that you've run into that have cost the title insurance company money, like where you had to come in and step in and protect, because this is the fun part, right? People are paying this fee and they don't get, like you said, yeah, there's not that many occurrences, but you know, you're paying a couple $1,000s for a title insurance policy, but your problem is a $5-6 million problem when it comes. Just like with us with lending, they don't understand why we're raking them over the coals to get it approved. And I tell them, I go, well, if I was going to loan you, if you were going to loan me $500,000 and that was what you saved up for retirement, what exactly would you want from me to make sure that your retirement? Because all we're doing is really loaning people's money back to them, right? Our investment accounts are really being reloaned to people to buy houses. I'm like, it's our job to make sure you're going to pay back, because otherwise that little old lady who thought she was going to retire can't even eat beans anymore, right? That's what we're doing. Same with title insurance companies. So tell me some like good stories of why and how large and how scary and what you guys have to do to fix the problem.
So it appears that there are a lot more claims right now than there have been in our career. We have seen a lot more over the last couple of years, but a couple of most recent that have been super fun and super interesting. For instance, one of our buyers purchased a piece of property and had 2 hard money loans on the property. When he went on Monday morning with his work truck to start his rehab work on the property, a couple walked up to him and said, "What are you doing to our property?" And he said, "What are you talking about? I just closed escrow on this property on Friday." And they said, "You couldn't have, because it was never for sale. This is our property. You need to get out of here." So he immediately called us from his car, from the street, and we started looking into it together and comparing notes of what he knew and what happened throughout the transaction. It was a very reputable escrow and reputable notary escrow officer. Everybody in the transaction, incredibly reputable. However, the individuals were a couple who came to him to sell their property had fake IDs. The fake IDs referenced the property address and the owner's names, but with their photos. So basically a couple that didn't own the property sold the property to him. He had, I think it was $700,000.
These are professional fraudsters.
Yeah.
Professional.
Wow. Yeah. And so when I first got in the mortgage business, when you notarize somebody, they didn't require a thumbprint. And the reason, I don't know if you guys know this history, the reason they started requiring the thumbprint first in LA County, because that's where, you know, California and New York have the highest level of fraud in the nation, right? And that's where we're operating. And now they have to do a thumbprint when people are notarized because people were going out there and acting like it was their property. They would get a fake ID pretty quickly on a corner in LA and come out. And now all of a sudden people would find out they had $100,000 equity line. They'd get a bill and not even know that they had gotten a loan against it because they would go in with their ID and go, yeah, here. And they would sign the notary book, but there was really no way to track them down because their fake IDs are gone, they're gone. So that's why we thumbprint now. Yeah. So those fraudsters will eventually probably get caught because they can track them down with notaries and stuff like that. But in the meantime, that doesn't give you any of that money back.
Doesn't help that buyer who's got 2 loans that are adding up to like $700,000 that he's paying high interest on. And that he thinks, now he can't do anything with the property. He was stuck with that.
So title insurance steps in, pays off the lenders, makes the new buyer of the property whole. And then we turn it over to our claims attorneys, who I'm sure are now dealing with the DA or FBI or who they deal with. But the buyer and seller don't have to worry about it anymore. They were made whole immediately.
And with $700,000, those people could be easily outside the country, untraceable, right? So you guys are stuck with that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big hit for a title company. I mean, that's an amazing one. We get smaller hits too. We had one where this buyer again was going in, and there was a family member who was a little distressed and they wanted to sell their property. She was the mother. She was the matriarch of the family.
Right.
So they went in and negotiated a pretty good deal. Well, her son was not happy with this deal. He said, wait a minute, I think that property is worth a little bit more. Well, the mom didn't care, and she just went forward with the transaction. Okay. Well, the son was really upset. Well, here we go. We closed the transaction, and we didn't know a day before he went and recorded a notice of action. Trying to stop the sale. But you don't see these things because there's like a 14-day delay of what's recorded and what shows up on our records. So now this person buys the property. We go through the whole process. They start fixing up the property. They've got hard money loans too. They get the property fixed. They're going to go sell it. And here we go. We do a prelim. We're like, well, there's a notice of action against this property right now. What? That stops everything right there in its tracks. Go through court, got to fight all this stuff. So that's where title comes in again. We come in and we find out the guy was upset. He wanted like $25,000 more for the property. So I think First American, immediately went into action and negotiated this with this guy and got him. And I think we had to pay out like $17,000, to get this guy to release this notice of action. So those were the things that happened. Nobody knew. We knew someone knew there was a mad family member, but we didn't know that this recorded right in front of us.
What about like easement type? Had like some sort of weird easement thing that I think you guys had to pay out on for a fence that was there or something. How do you guys get involved in boundary stuff like that? Are you insuring the boundaries, or was that just something weird? I don't know if you guys remember that one. It was a while back, probably like 12 to 15 years ago, on the big old house on the left-hand side on the way up behind the gates there on Claraboya. But it was like a boundary issue almost, or where the person, I think they sued because they built the brick wall on their property or something like that. And I was kind of surprised that title got involved in something like that.
Typically, a title company insures the legal description on a property, the legal
Okay.
description. However, with the new Eagle policy, homeowners policy, it's called Eagle policy that First American's written, there are at times where we will get involved and help with that as well if there's a financial loss. So for instance, somebody wouldn't just come in and say, hey, they're parking their car on my lot, I want money. There would actually have to be a financial loss. And then that's kind of a little above our expertise, if you will. That's something that we would turn over to our claims department. They go through and take a look at that and see what needed to be done, what would be covered, what would not be covered, et cetera. But for the most part, title insurance covers a legal description.
Yeah, many times a drive-by inspector. With this Eagle policy that we have, we send out, we just randomly we're going to send out a drive-by inspector on this one, and he'll drive by and he doesn't know for sure, but he'll look like, okay, I see a garage is kind of on the other side of the property line. I see something happening, and he'll report that. And then we have to get deeper. We have to dig deeper into it. But, occasionally there's a drive-by inspection prior to close.
Got it.
Yeah.
So that was always surprised me. I thought it was all just liens and, liability type stuff. And I was kind of like, oh, I didn't realize you guys are kind of insuring that legal description too, which means, obviously that's the information that comes from title, but you're getting it from public records and everything. And unless you're going by there, how do you know if somebody's built something or changed it since the legal description was done? And all of a sudden somebody like you that, where they threw the garage on another piece of property or whatever else, and nobody mentioned it. And all of a sudden somebody buys it later and it becomes a problem with the new owners. That actually happened to my brother on one. And it, been that way for 20 years that he lived there. And then he closes on the transaction, or went to close on the transaction, and it became an issue. So this stuff is all stuff that title handles. So anything, wrap this up. Anything that you think we should mention that I didn't ask you about that's important to kind of know with title insurance?
Well, I was going to say one more thing about the legal description. We insure the legal description. We don't insure that it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. We don't. Those things we don't know. We're insuring the legal description and the boundaries. We're not insuring that you actually bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. We have no idea. That's the appraiser and escrow and you and the real estate agents. That's what you guys do.
Yeah. So, legal description of the property when it comes to like what it is there and what's not there. I mean, you'd hope the people walk through the property and they could see what they were buying. But we've seen some cases where even that's not the case anymore. But they at least hopefully get an appraisal that says how many bedrooms and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of money involved in anything where there's a lot of money involved in, whether it's stocks, bonds, real estate. You have to have insurance on these things because there's a lot at risk and they're big dollars. So thank you guys so much for coming on. A little tidbit for everybody listening to this, that Tim and Debra and my wife, Lori, and I were married on the same day. And I won't tell them how long ago, but we're celebrating our 33rd anniversary tomorrow. We weren't married at the same place, an hour apart. But it's funny, I've been working with these title reps for over 30 years, and both of us, including Tim and Debra, my wife, Lori, and I will be celebrating our 33rd anniversary tomorrow. So congratulations, guys. Again, thanks a lot. We know what it takes to be in this business and still stay married. That's why my wife's a teacher. I don't know. She would never work with me. I don't know how you two work together, but my wife would never work with me. Are you kidding me? She tells me that all the time. She said, in fact, she tells me she should go to work so she can get rid of me at times. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And this will be very helpful.
Thank you. We appreciate you having us on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Tim and Debra, you're going to tell me a little bit though, because Steven told me I was going to forget. He's got to help me do these recordings, but I didn't. Steven, see that? Tell us, how do people get hold of you? Like, is it just the Galli.com is the best way? They're the best title reps in the business. I can tell you that they have saved my rather large butt many times when I needed something to record to make me look good and to make sure that client or realtor look good and close a transaction. I have not had a better partner or partners in any part of my business than the Galli team, flat out. For the 30 years I've been doing mortgages, I do a lot of business, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have had some of the best team members, including Tim and Debra, on the very top of that list for my title people. So how do they get hold of you?
We appreciate that, Tim. Thank you very, very much. It's really, truly an honor to be a part of your team. And our team, our office knows that when we have a transaction with you, we can always take that to the extra step to make things happen. 100%. They can reach us by going to whygalli.com. Whygalli.com has all of our contact information. And I would even like to offer, if there's anybody out there who doesn't remember how they hold title on their property, give us a call or send us a text message. We're happy to send you a copy of your most current grant deed on your property so that you will know how you hold title.
Just so Gen Y doesn't get confused, right? Y is WHY. Galli. G-A-L-L.
No, we didn't get
WHYGALLI.com.
We didn't.
WHYGALLI.com. You guys should make one for the Y generation, which is just Y Galli, right?
It's not a bad idea.
It's coming.
It's available.
Always come to me for your marketing ideas. I'm here for you.
You may do that. Give us a call. We'll tell you how you hold title on your property, but we're also going to send you a flyer so you can see what the options are, so you can make sure you're holding title the way that you want to. Then you can talk to your tax person or to your attorney, make sure that you're holding title the correct way. With all of the events that have happened in the last year and a half, we've had to deal with a lot of probate issues, both with people in the industry and those who are not in the industry. So again, please, please, please don't let that happen to your family.
So I'm gonna like dig deeper into this a little bit right here. And this is where we are very, very careful, but you have to make sure that if you have a trust, and that's another one of these podcasts that I've done about trust and why to have them and not get stuck in probate, that your property got put back into the trust. And so what they're offering you, and you can also come to me because I just have access to their services, thanks to them. But basically make sure that that property was put back into the trust so that you don't have a problem down the road. That's a big, hey, we can help you out in this. All right, guys, we got to get out of here so we can go start planning for our amazing anniversaries. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Bye now.
Bye-bye.